What should you do if you hate your job? Now, I'm sure that I am not the only human on planet Earth who has had a job they hated. What about you, Ricky? You the same?
Definitely had a job that I've hated.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're going to talk about what should you do if you actually hate your job. You've been waiting for me to ask you a question.
Is there a question coming or is it a statement?
I thought that was a question within a statement. What should you do if you don't like your job, Ricky?
Well, everyone's going to tell you to get out, right? But
Quit.
Leave.
Don't stay.
But as you become an adult, as an adult, there's adulting things that come with being an adult.
Like bills.
Like bills, mortgage, rent payments, food, cost of living. So since it's terrible career advice, I would say leave, or find someone, a very rich, significant other to support you.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would probably look at leaving, but I'll do it smartly. So
how does one do it smartly?
Well, I'll tell you how one does it smartly.
Right.
First and foremost, you need to look at everything coming out, right? So I would look at everything I need to survive. I'm not talking about my Fridays at the pubs or, your shopping sprees or...
Your necessities.
Exactly. All right, what does it actually cost me to be alive? And then...
exist.
Exactly. And then the next thing I would do is, okay, I don't like this job, and I'd have to go through a mental sort of state and figure out, is it the job I don't like or is it the company I'm working for? Because there's two, I think we've covered it in another podcast. I loved what I was doing. I just hated the company I was working for. Therefore, I hated the job I was doing. So once you've worked out, is it the job you hate or is it the company you don't like? If it's the company, then it's all right. You've got an area of expertise. Just apply for other jobs. Look for the next one. Just keep applying. Someone's going to reach back or something will come from it. But if it's the actual job that you're doing that you don't like, then reevaluate. What makes you happy? What could you pursue? What passions have you got? What could you turn into an income? That's what I would do on the larger scheme of things. What about you?
No, I agree. I think first and foremost, if you hate your job, you've got to ask yourself, why do I hate the job? Is it the people? Do I hate the people? And if you do, hey, that's fair. Like, you're not going to like everyone.
Why not?
Because you can't like everyone. Some people are just unlikable, Ricky. You can't like everyone. So asking yourself, what is it that I don't like about this job? What is it that's making me miserable and making me hate my day to day? Because hate is a strong word. And you can hate your job now and then. Maybe you have a crappy week or a crappy day or something happens. But if it's consistently shit and you hate it consistently, then that's obviously going to take its toll on you mentally. It's going to affect you emotionally. And then it ends up affecting your personal life, your family life, your relationships, and you probably just drown yourself in alcohol on the weekends because you're trying to recharge after being burnt out for the week and numb yourself. So, does that sound familiar? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
But no, I think there are warning signs, and if, we all hate our jobs now and then, no such thing as a perfect job, but if it's consistent and you're finding yourself day in, day out dreading going to work, and on a Sunday you're dreading going to work, then there's a problem. But you need to get clarity on what the problem is, because it could be a bunch of things pulled together, but you need to actually dig quite deep and work out what is the issue here, because you don't want that repeating. You don't want that repeating the next job you go into. So it's like trying to understand what is the root cause of this unhappiness in this role. And maybe it's just you. Maybe it's just you. And
maybe,
that's okay too.
Maybe you're the problem.
Maybe you are. We're always the problem. But no, honestly though, maybe what you want out of a role and what you want in life has changed. And actually the role itself is fine. The people are fine. But you have just realized it's not what you want. And so you end up hating it, resenting it. That's fine too.
That's a good shout. As you get older, you adapt and you climatize is probably the wrong word, but it's sort of relatable. You move into the next stage of or the next chapter in your life and who you want to be and how you want to be represented or remembered.
And that can change over time.
Oh, 100%. I remember when I was on the tools still panel beating, and like my goal at that time, my goal at that time was to be the best panel beater on the floor, be the best one fixing, the most sought after collision repairer or collision repair technician out there.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to be the best of the best in that particular niche.
I did, yep. And then I niched down into structural, and that's all I wanted to do without getting too technical. But as time went on, as I grew older, as I started to want different things in life, I quickly realized I wanted to get off the tools, and I wanted to add value in other areas, and I wanted to pursue other things, and led me to the path that I'm on now, where I'm now into a completely, still within the same industry, but a completely different style of role.
Mm. So it's like kind of like this natural evolution. Yeah. Where it's like what you really wanted in the past, you achieved, and then it's very natural to want something else and to go for it. And actually, like for me personally, my goal was always to be a marketing and communications manager. And that's what I really wanted. And then I got it, and now I'm like, oh, what do I want to do next? Once you achieve that goal that you've been working so hard towards for a long time, you ask yourself, what is next? Because naturally we always want more as human beings.
Well, that's it. So and I saw this meme online or post online, and I didn't really relate it to myself until I actually did a bit of a deep dive internally, and it was driven people always unhappy or unsatisfied, and that sort of falls into the same boat. Like I got to the point where I was like, I don't feel I can go any further. So then I became unhappy with what I was doing. I was like, what's next? Because my mind was so driven, I'm always trying to think 10 steps ahead. I mean, you've heard my brain work on the odd occasion. It runs a million miles an hour. So that was it. It was being driven isn't a downside. If you hate your job, it just means you're looking for the next.
Yeah, so if you hate your job and it's because it doesn't challenge you anymore and you're bored as shit, then it's like, cool, what's the next thing? What will give you that sense of achievement and challenge that you're longing for? There are so many reasons why you may hate your job, but yeah, if you're a driven person, maybe you've just plateaued in that role and it doesn't give you what you need to go to that next level, to feel like you can go to a next level. Because I think for driven people, they don't like feeling stuck or stagnant. And when you do, it can make you actually quite depressed and down when you want growth but you can't have it.
I completely agreed. And the completely other side of the spectrum, I've been in a job where I've absolutely hated it. So it's a job that I actually really wanted, but like we said, touching on I think I touched on at the beginning as well, the company or whatnot. The company was the reason I hated the job.
The culture or the leadership? It was
just everything. It was the leadership, the culture, just the way it was all run, the expectation. I had in my head this vision of what this role would look like, and I was like, this is what I've been working towards, this is what I want. Got the opportunity. Like a new relationship, had the honeymoon stage. I was like, this is awesome, this is great, I'm loving it. Honeymoon stage wore off. It sort of sat back into what neutral, what the now would be or the norm is.
Married life.
Yep, we got to full married life. I gotta be careful here.
You do have to choose your. Yeah, I'm not wearing my wedding ring.
But no, like it was something I really wanted. Honeymoon stage ended. We got into full blown marriage at that point, and it just
you're just bickered all the time.
It just wasn't for me.
Wasn't a match.
It wasn't. And it wasn't for lack of trying. Again, it sounds like Renee. Is this a podcast?
Did you got a marriage counselor?
I feel like I needed to go to marriage. It wasn't for lack of trying. Like there was trying on both ends. It's just the expectation wasn't clear enough. It
always comes down to communication.
Yeah, and this is marriage counselling 101. But I mean, we're so successful. 2-3 years for the.
We've been together for 10 years, a decade soon. I'm proud of us. That's a long time. I've never committed to anything for that long. Anyway, this is a relationship.
Where was I? Oh, yeah. So it was, like I'd given it my all. His expectation of me and my expectation of him just didn't align. So like all natural relationships that don't align, we drifted apart, and me hating the job led me to a path where I now am loving my job.
You're in a good relationship.
I'm in a good relationship with a company that's reciprocating my love for it.
Yeah, great. You're on the same page.
Yes. So that's my thoughts. It's if it's not you from being unhappy because you're not being challenged enough, then it's potentially the company or the environment or the culture of that particular situation.
Yeah.
Those are the only reasons, in my eyes, that you'd hate your job. Unless, again, it goes back to the company, actually, unless it's one particular person. Like you said at the beginning, you can't like everyone. You just need to learn how to get on with people.
Yes. Yeah. I think authentically, like, there's some people that just push your buttons. And I'm not saying be manipulative by any means, but sometimes you just understand that some people need a bit of an ego massage before because that's how they operate and you can get in their good books. It's not to manipulate them, but it's like, hey, I've got a job to do. I want to get the job done. And I know that this person likes a bit of small talk and to have their ego boosted before they want to.
Is that why you've never made a bed in your life? You keep boosting me up.
You're so good at making the bed.
Don't gaslight me.
You were so good at making the bed, though. I've always been very impressed by how you make it. Anyway, we digress. I don't even know what we were talking about.
Hating job. Final words.
Hating your job. Yeah. So I think when it comes to hating your job, it's very natural to hate your job at some point or another. But look at how maybe you've evolved and changed, and what is it about that role that you're not liking? Is it the people? Is it the role itself? Is it the fact that you feel stuck and stagnant? Like, really get some journaling happening.
Ooh.
And just write down all the things you love about your role, all the things you don't love, and how you'd like it to be different, and kind of see what you come up with. And you may find that it's actually you that's the problem. And actually you've outgrown the role perhaps, and you're just looking for something different, and that's fine too. But then that's going to give you some insights into what you do next and how you find it, because you don't want the same thing repeating over and over again.
I love that. It's the back to basics. Pull out the old doodle pen, draw a line, things you love, things you don't love. Like, there's things out there to help, and I think going back to just writing a pros and a cons list is so powerful.
The pros and cons list.
I still got my Janelle pros and Janelle cons list.
There'll be so much more of the pros column, obviously, because you've almost been with me for 10 years, so it must be a pretty long bloody bit.
But I think going old school, like, get the bit of paper out, talk to the people around you. If you're unsure which category that you fall into, do you fall into the I'm just unhappy because I'm not being driven, or it's the culture, it's the people, whatever the reason you're unhappy, write it down, pros and cons, reach out to your family, your friends, someone you trust, have a chat with them. It just has to be a conversation. They don't have to, you're not looking after advice or sorting out advice from them. You're just
getting a second opinion.
Yeah, you're getting their perspective. Hey, this is what's going on, and the best thing about doing it, and I think you've gone down this route before, is like a coaching perspective. You get a non-biased perspective, someone that's not on your side but not on their side, and they can sort of just ask you the right questions to open your mind to think, shit, it is me. All right, I need to adjust my approach. Actually, you know what? This is toxic for me, and where I'm heading, this isn't the right fit or the right path for me to go down. I think you're probably better to talk to that, since you are a coach, Janelle, life coach. Plug. You thought we wouldn't plug, but we did plug.
Of course we did. But yeah, absolutely. So when I work with my coaching clients, typically they think they need a new job and new career because they're unhappy. And they think the answer is to getting a new job. But what we find over the weeks we work together is that actually that's not the thing. The thing is getting back in touch with who they are, what they actually want, and getting clarity on what brings them joy, what gives them a sense of purpose and meaning in life, and what their values are, and setting their own goals based on that. After they kind of get more in touch with themselves and start changing the way they think, then it's not actually the job, it's basically their whole psyche and what's happening underneath the surface. And they realize, actually, I could be in any role and be happy, because it comes down to mindset and what's going on inside their own brain. So once they learn how to master that and really get back in touch with themselves, they could be happy in any role.
Did you do any coaching or reach out to anyone when you were unhappy?
when I was unhappy in my role, yes, I hired a life coach when I was going through that challenging time. I was just so burnt out and just unhappy, but I was so fixated on the money. Like I didn't want to leave my job because I was worried about money, and I was like, oh no, I need all this money, and then I don't want to take a pay cut because that's the worst thing you could ever do, right? But then, like what you were talking about earlier, how much do you actually need to survive to exist? And you'll find out that actually you probably don't need all that much. You're just used to your salary, and we always live within our means. We can adjust. And so like we've probably lived on a salary half of what we've had before, half of what we have now. We were fine, but now we've got the bigger salaries. We still spend. We spend it all. I don't know where the fuck it goes.
What's this wee business?
Well, I spend it all frivolously on stuff I don't need. But you live within your means. And so if money is the reason that's holding you back from, leaving your role, then actually do that whole budgeting thing and work out how much do you actually need to exist. And it'll help take the pressure off, because you're attached to a number that actually you could be absolutely fine without it and making some lifestyle changes. And who knows, you might actually end up in a role that pays better than what you're getting paid anyway. You just don't know.
Agreed. So my final thoughts for this podcast of hating your job is do a bit of self-reflection. Like your loves and your hates and everything are going to change as you get older. I mean, things that I found important to me 5 years ago aren't as important to me now. As you get older, you're going to go down multiple different chapters in your life. You're going to take on multiple different challenges and multiple different challenges that are going to require you to adjust your lifestyle or whatever it may be. So you're constantly adapting and changing. That's what we do as human beings. We adapt and we change, which is why we're flourishing.
Nobody.
So I love what you said, go back to basics. And I've actually told a lot of people that before. Like I've had people coming to me, friends and family and, unhappy situations. And it's just like, jolt it down. If you write it down and you're spending too long, it shouldn't be hard to write it down. If you're having to overthink about a pros and a cons list, then it more or less lies with you. You're the reason why you're unhappy. It's not the job that you're trying to, or the situation you're trying to write the pros.
Yeah, it could just be a mindset, your perception of it.
Correct, because they should flow naturally. Your pros and your cons. If I'm sitting here and I'm writing a pros and cons list for the current job, I'm like, all right, I really hate this job. I'll be able to just knock that out, and I'd have a couple of pages full. But if I'm struggling to even get started, then you internally need to think, maybe I'm the reason I'm unhappy, and then you reevaluate, your current life situation.
Yeah, and then it's digging deep into why.
But I would honestly, because I'm a sports player, so I love the back to basics. Get the old pad out, get the old pencil, not pen's too new, get the pencil out. Get the old pencil sharpener, the old eraser.
Everyone has pencils these days, so you're actually not that...
Let's go old school. Let's get the old feather and ink. Let's just start jolting down the pros and cons and just see where it leads you, see where it takes you. That's my advice, because... yeah, if you're struggling with that side of things, then it's an internal situation. If it's an internal situation, just reach out to people in your life that you respect, you care about, you value, and just you don't have to open up to them and say, I'm going through a hard time. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, I think definitely reaching out to people that you trust when you're at this point, but also being very careful, because the way that you tell the story is going to set the narrative. So no matter what you say to a friend or a family member, they're going to take your side, usually. So if you say, my boss is an arsehole, they'll be like, your boss is an arsehole. But really...
I'm the prime example for that.
You need an objective person that's going to be like, oh, what is it about your boss that makes them an arsehole? And ask you the questions, and then you may find actually maybe they're not that much of an arsehole. Maybe I could be doing things a little bit differently. You just don't know, and that's why I think hiring a coach or someone who's impartial, who's objective, to be able to ask you those questions, so that you're not... The worst thing you can do is take advice from a friend or a family member, and then you decide you shouldn't have done that, because you don't want to feel resentful towards them. So be very careful about the advice you take on. It's going to be your decision.
Yeah, and also true people shouldn't give you advice. You need to make your own decision up. Don't rely on someone else to make the decision for you.
No, you shouldn't. No, personal responsibility is a very important thing. Yeah.
I think this is a good podcast.
Oh, hopefully. If not, sorry, you just wasted the last 15 minutes of your life. You will never get that back. But if you got a shitty job and you hate it, hopefully this gave you some words of wisdom.
Correct.
That you can then implement.
Or if you were about midway through the podcast and still with us, a bit of marriage counselling too.
Yeah, precisely.
It's a double whammy.
There you go. Your relationships will improve and your career will improve as a result of listening to this podcast. You're welcome.
Thank you. This has been terrible career advice.
Is it?
I think so. As well as marriage counselling.
Yeah, both.
Cheers. Bye.